destination time successfully. Okay, for now, ladies and gentlemen, I want to bring up this podium a man I saw when he walked into this place. I just loved him for one thing, because we have the same fashion sense. It's just the hair that is different, and though I removed my own after Unbroken, when I finished shooting African Magic Unbroken with Mnet, so I removed my own. So his own is longer than my own, so I'm still going there. He's been here for some time now, and he'll be giving us the keynote address on how to migrate and modernize your business service on the cloud. And he's none other but the client technology lead of one of our sponsors, one of our partners, Microsoft. Ladies and gentlemen, when you see him, you understand what I said. We have the same fashion sense, and some things about us are the same. Please help me make welcome the handsome, delightable Mr. Wole Odeleye as he comes to take the next 15 minutes, and it opens up the insight in how to migrate and modernize your business service on the cloud. Thank you so much, sir. Welcome.
All right, thank you so much. So I understand we're actually significantly behind time. So I'm going to keep this very, very short. I particularly enjoyed the panel before us because, see, I've been at countless cloud sessions across the world, and everyone comes and starts to talk, really big grammar, and anyway, it's nice for certain audiences, but it was refreshing hearing a practical perspective from people who have done this before, right? And that's because it's important we are careful not to see the cloud as a silver bullet for all possible computing problems we'll face in the modern world. It is not. It is just an enabler. And especially in our market, Africa and in Nigeria, it requires you are not bullish about it because everybody is doing it, but you take a pragmatic approach to your cloud strategy, your cloud execution, and most importantly, your cloud operating framework. I'm going to move just very quickly to a few points that I want us to land on. And I will use that to simply explain a few concepts here. First things first is that over the course of my career, banking, oil and gas, government services, telecoms, consulting for organizations in this space, I've seen different ways to how cloud innovation, cloud adoption has been. I've worked with a Pan-African bank, for example, more recently, this was last year actually, who had an extremely aggressive approach to both their cloud migration strategy and also the execution of their multi-cloud strategy. And I'll come to that point later. And they just took a decision that, look, we are moving 80% of our entire data center estate. And this must be done in 8 months. Now, that is so far, I think, the most aggressive I've ever seen in my career. And it's part of why I've not had very good sleep in a while. I've also seen other organizations who took a bit more pragmatism and said that, look, our biggest challenge is our electronic banking channels. Or in the case of telco, the payment services businesses, the payment services vehicles in telco. And what they say is that, look, let's not fight the battle of dealing with legacy infrastructure like treasury, risk. Those back end, and then God have mercy on us, the main core banking, which is the nightmare we all face. And they just focus on the electronic banking channel and say that, look, let's take this sometimes 10, sometimes 24 channels and make them run as containerized applications. The example the gentleman gave earlier was spot on, because what then happens is you now have to assess all those applications, understand their dependencies in terms of what kind of database does it run on. How can we ensure that not only the migration runs successfully, but the end state operating model is running in a way that the IT organization don't have to spend so much time managing that solution, and it is self-sustaining. The beauty of the cloud, the actual beauty of the cloud, is in the fact that it can not just only run scalably or reliably, but it can run in a self-service manner that frees the IT organization from performing administrative tasks so that they can actually become innovators. And that is why that if you look at modern telco or modern banking, the roles are changing. You're no longer seeing traditional app developers. You are seeing DevOps. You are seeing AI engineers. You are seeing cloud architects. Roles that as far back as maybe 7 years ago didn't even exist at all. And that is what it is doing. And that's how we need to understand this. Now, I'm not going to bother you with all this story. I want to tell you very quickly what we as Microsoft can do to help you around cloud migration. So as far back as 2016, 2017 in Microsoft, we went through our own internal transformation. We had to change the way we build products, the way we run our operations, the way we run our technology, and most importantly, the kind of culture we were creating around innovation, which meant that we moved from the monolithic thinking of thinking that our Windows server is the greatest thing in the world to actually paying our attention to Azure. We found that by making this move, we were able to unlock unbelievable transformation in the industry, and that's why ChatGPT is making so much noise now. Everybody wants to plug in ChatGPT into their apps. It was because of those kind of bold thinking that we went through that. And so when I consult for other organizations, it's the same thing I do. Now, we created a program in Microsoft which is called the Azure Modernization and Migration Program, where if an organization tells me that I want to commence my cloud journey, we will walk you through the process of, first of all, articulating what that cloud strategy is. Are you going to work with a single cloud provider? Are you going to run a multi-cloud architecture? Are you going to run hybrid? A multi-cloud architecture means you have multiple cloud providers for whatever reason. Sometimes the reason is because of the kind of capabilities you want to leverage. So some cloud providers may be very good in infrastructure and high-scale workload, high compute workloads that you can use to run a core banking on the cloud. Some cloud providers are very good for platform services, middleware integration, right? It's then the cloud decisioning framework and the strategy that articulates what you are going to do. And if hypothetically you are now in a heavily regulated industry, government, banking, healthcare, insurance, and that industry has certain data control, data residency requirements, that has to be factored into your cloud strategy, because it means basically that some kinds of services and workloads cannot move to the public cloud. But you want to enjoy cloud benefits to a degree. So you have to architect those environments such that every environment in your data center that runs any workload, be it public cloud or a private cloud appliance like the HP Proliant and the HP platforms. I'm even working with HP on another project. You can architect all of them to work together in such a way that you don't introduce unnecessary complexity into the operating environment, and they still get the opportunities for scale. And so we created this program to help customers accelerate their journey to the cloud, and we allow for a very broad set of migration scenarios. You may decide you want to go a bit traditional. You want to take a workload as it is and simply jump it on the cloud, simply because you want to achieve high availability. You don't want a scenario where servers are crashing. You don't want to deal with that nonsense, right? You can decide that you want to migrate from the point of view of application modernization. And application modernization is a very, we talk about it a lot. Not many people actually understand it. And that's why I loved the explanations that the people who spoke before me, where is this bloody thing? The people who spoke before me had articulated. So let me explain what goes into that. There are 4 possible things that you can ever do to an application if you are moving it to the cloud. You can decide that you want to just do a replatforming, like the gentleman mentioned. So I'm just taking the core source code, the core code base, the core executable files, and moving it to another platform. The only consideration you want to worry about is, can it function in that environment? But usually it's not very difficult. Replatforming is very easy. You can unfortunately find yourself in a situation, some banks will find themselves where you have really old services and you need to refactor them. Refactoring is really, really painful because you are changing the code structure, the way the application is designed itself. You are decoupling that entire monolith or building entirely new microservices around that monolith so that you can, over time, retire that legacy application capability and have a fresh, newly built application. We found a lot of banks did this when they were modernizing mobile internet banking, agency banking services, because what they had to do, if you remember the old mobile banking applications, then they were very, they were encompassing monsters. But what they've done now, and the banks have been amazing. I even think, if you think about Africa as a whole, what we've done in Nigeria is unbelievably good. And what they've done is they've, over time, without we the consumers even knowing, modernized those services in such a way that they are running in that microservices refactored architecture. So it is so scalable, and the way they've designed it is that over time, they can now start to pull out services they don't need and plug in new services. Now imagine a bank that decides now that I want to have a ChatGPT interface in my mobile and internet banking so that the bot can go in and respond to customer inquiries without an agent in contact center responding. How do you think that would happen? All Microsoft needs to do is to plug in that service into their existing mobile banking framework. So that's what goes into refactoring. Re-architecting is another really painful process, unfortunately. This is common with workloads like your core banking workload, where you are running a really old version of either a T24 or a Finacle or an Infosys, whatever. And you have to re-architect aspects of that application, not necessarily the core of its function, but aspects of the application. How does it communicate with middleware services? How does it communicate with capabilities within itself? How can it run on a containerized service like Kubernetes? That is what goes into that. Now, we have worked with a number of organizations in this exercise, and in the program, what we do is we help you to migrate and, if required, modernize your services. We are able to do this for both the applications, the middleware, and even the data estate. So if you have data workloads you think you need to move to the cloud, whether they are SQL Server, Oracle, TerraDB, we can do that and have them run as proper data warehousing solutions on the cloud. And you can then decide you want to build a robust microservices-based integration layer, eliminate all those on-premise dependencies, and have that cloud-based integration layer manage service orchestration across all your apps. I hope I'm not moving too complex, please. Let me know if I'm blowing too much jargon. Another important thing is technical scaling. The kind of skill sets you use to run traditional IT environments is simply not works on the cloud. To run on the cloud, it requires a really bold change in the way you think about your workforce, the way you think about your competency, and the kind of skills you bring to bear. Nearly every single bank in this country that I have consulted for has struggled to find people who have architecture skills for the cloud, people who have DevOps skills, not application building skills, actual DevOps, who understand DevOps practices. You don't have many people who even know AI. How many people can build a bot? Some people can even do a bit of machine learning model building, and but to build those kind of things, you need a whole new set of skill sets. And so part of my problem now is to help these people find those kind of talent. But what we do as Microsoft is that as part of that cloud journey, we start scaling early. We're not going to wait, and I don't think it's good practice for you to wait for you to have completed that whole thing and then you're now worrying about scaling. It means you have not taken your change management seriously and you will run into trouble. Don't assume that because you are moving into the cloud, you have everything covered. You need to understand cloud operations, cloud resources. How do I know how to create resource groups? How do I do integration? How do I standardize security and control and identity? You need to know what the hell you are doing. We also, as Microsoft, provide some automated tools that do this migration. Depending on the complexity of workloads, these tools can automatically discover identify, understand the application, and move it without a human being interfering. There are AI-based tools that do this very effectively. In addition, we provide engineering and architect resources who will also work with your team. So if you have an aggressive timeline, like what is happening, what Emefiele has done now, that is forcing everybody to quickly migrate their services to the cloud now. If you have that kind of aggressive timeline, while we are doing the skilling, our guys can be doing the actual migration activity, hand-holding, environmental preparation activities also. So the final point I want to make is this. It is extremely important that before you go on any cloud transformation journey, you understand what the rules of engagement will be for your organization. Don't try and copy what somebody else has done. Do what works for you. To understand what works for you, you need to have a governing set of principles around how you articulate your cloud strategy and you execute it. As Microsoft, we created the cloud adoption framework that basically guides how you understand that strategy, use it to plan what the future digital estate should look like, and understand the delta between that destination, that North Star you're looking for, and where you are today. And on the basis of that, agree on a migration plan and begin a sprint-based migration. So don't try and do everything at once. Take it in bits, understand your risk appetite, and focus on your most critical services. Meaning that what are the services that directly impact your customers? That is where you want to prioritize for your cloud strategy. I think that should be all I have to say today. Thank you very much for your time.
Check. Okay. That's indeed very, very, very profound. Thank you so much. Yeah, you can have your seat. Oh, awesome. We are the same.